The smoke from the distant horizon choked the air as Beau Keller urged Valor, his silver-gray Appaloosa, into a full gallop. The flames dancing in the distance illuminated the darkening Montana sky, giving the evening an apocalyptic glow. Beau had spotted the fire from miles away. The Apache refugee camp along the Yellowstone River was burning, and the screams carried on the wind told him there wasn't much time. "Come on, boy," he whispered to Valor, leaning low over the horse's neck. "They need us." The year was 1878, and tensions between settlers and native tribes remained high across the Montana Territory. The small band of Apache had fled north after conflicts in Arizona, seeking peace away from the reservations. They'd established a temporary camp near Eureka, Montana, a burgeoning mining town where Beau worked as a horse wrangler. He'd been returning from delivering a mare to a rancher outside town when he spotted the blaze. As Valor thundered closer, Beau could make out figures running between the burning tippies. A band of riders, likely the same troublemakers who'd been causing problems in Eureka for weeks, were circling the camp, firing shots and whooping. His jaw tightened. The sheriff had warned those men to leave the peaceful Apache alone, but clearly they hadn't listened. The heat intensified as Beau reached the perimeter of the camp. Pulling his bandana up over his nose, he guided Valor through the chaos. Women clutched children to their chests, elders stumbled through smoke, and warriors tried in vain to defend what remained of their temporary home. "Over here," he shouted, but his voice was lost in the crackling of flames and panicked cries. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the smoke directly in his path. Valor reared slightly, and Beau steadied the horse with practiced ease. Through the haze, he found himself staring into the most determined eyes he'd ever seen. A young woman stood before him, her long black hair streaked with ash, a small child clutched to her chest, and an elderly man leaning heavily against her side. "Clara," Beau called out in surprise, recognizing the woman who often came to Eureka to trade beautifully beaded moccasins and pouches. Clara Goodwin wasn't Apache by birth. The daughter of missionaries who had died years ago, she had been raised among the tribe and served as their interpreter and advocate in dealings with the white settlers. Beau had spoken with her several times in town, always struck by her fierce intelligence and the way she moved between two worlds. "Beau," she gasped, relief momentarily softening her fear-hardened features. "They came without warning, torched everything. Some of our people are trapped in the ravine. They can't climb out and the fire is spreading." Without hesitation, Beau extended his hand. "Get on. We'll reach them faster on horseback." Clara passed the child to the elderly man. "Take Running Cloud to the river, grandfather. I'll bring help." She turned back to Beau, grasping his outstretched arm and swinging up behind him. "Hold tight," Beau instructed as they plunged deeper into the burning encampment. Valor snorted nervously but pressed forward, his powerful legs carrying them through smoke and flame. The horse seemed to understand the stakes, each step filled with purpose rather than fear. Clara's arms tightened around Beau's waist. "There." She pointed toward a narrow gorge where the land suddenly dropped away from the main camp. Reining Valor to the edge, Beau could see a dozen people below, mostly women and children. Flames had encircled them, cutting off both ends of the ravine. The fire was spreading through the dry grass at an alarming rate. "There's a game trail," Clara shouted over the roar of the fire. Steep but passable on foot, Valor could never manage it. Beau nodded grimly. "I'll go down, you stay with Valor." "No," Clara said firmly. "My people trust me, some don't speak English." There was no time to argue. Beau dismounted and helped Clara down. "Stay close," he instructed. leading the way to the narrow path that zigzagged down the ravine wall. The descent was treacherous, loose stones skittering beneath their boots. Once at the bottom, they found the group huddled against the cliff face, as far from the approaching flames as possible. Among them was a pregnant woman clutching her swollen belly, her face contorted in pain. "Kiona is having her baby," Clara explained quickly. "It started this morning." Beau assessed the situation rapidly. "We need to get them up that trail now before the fire blocks it completely." He approached the frightened group, removing his hat in respect. "Madam," he addressed the pregnant woman through Clara's translation, "I know you're in pain, but we need to move. I can carry you." The woman nodded stoically, understanding transcending language. With Clara translating, they organized the evacuation. Beau took the pregnant woman in his arms, her surprising lightness a testament to the hardships the tribe had endured. One by one, they made their way up the treacherous path, Clara guiding the children, Beau returning 3 more times to help the elderly and injured. By the time everyone reached the top, Beau's lungs burned from smoke, and sweat soaked through his shirt despite the cool evening air. The attackers had fled, perhaps satisfied with their destruction or scared off by the arrival of others from town who had seen the fire. Valor stood exactly where they'd left him, pawing nervously but holding his ground. Beau couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in his steadfast companion. "We need to get these people to safety," Clara said, her voice hoarse from smoke. "The river bend has a clearing large enough for everyone." Beau nodded, helping the pregnant woman onto Valor. He would lead the horse while everyone else followed on foot. As they made their way through what remained of the camp, Clara suddenly froze. "Wait!" she cried, darting toward a burning tipi. The medicine bundles. Before Beau could stop her, she had disappeared into the smoke. Cursing under his breath, he secured Valor's reins to a nearby post and raced after her. Inside the tipi, flames licked up one side of the structure, the smoke thick and disorienting. He found Clara frantically gathering small leather pouches from a partially burning rack. "Clara!" he shouted, grabbing her arm. "We have to go now." A burning timber crashed down nearby, sending sparks flying. Clara clutched the medicine bundles to her chest as Beau pulled her toward the entrance. They burst out into marginally clearer air just as the tipi collapsed behind them. "That was foolish," he scolded, though his heart pounded with admiration for her courage. "These contain our sacred herbs and prayers," she explained between coughs. "Without them, our spiritual connection would be severed." Understanding dawned on Beau as he recognized what these items meant to the tribe, not just possessions, but their very identity and connection to their ancestors. He nodded solemnly and guided her back to the waiting group. By the time they reached the river clearing, several riders from town had arrived with wagons and supplies. Dr. Harrison Adams, Eureka's physician, immediately attended to the pregnant woman, while Sheriff Miles Porter organized the setting up of temporary shelters. Beau unsaddled Valor, allowing the exhausted horse to drink from the river before rubbing him down with handfuls of grass. Clara approached, carrying a water skin. "For you," she offered. "You risked everything for people most in your position would have ridden past." Beau accepted the water gratefully. "I'm not most people." He took a long drink before adding, "And they didn't deserve what happened to them. No one does." Clara studied him, ash and soot streaking her face, yet somehow enhancing rather than diminishing her beauty. "No, you're certainly not most people, Beau Keller." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary before Clara was called away to help with translations. Beau watched her go, a strange tightness in his chest that had nothing to do with the smoke he'd inhaled. Throughout the night, Beau worked alongside the townspeople and Apache to establish a makeshift camp. By dawn, Kiona had delivered a healthy baby boy, a small miracle amid the tragedy. As the sun rose over the Yellowstone River, casting golden light across the water, the full extent of the destruction became clear. The Apache had lost nearly everything: their shelter, food stores, and many personal belongings. Sheriff Porter approached where Beau sat drinking coffee by a small fire. "Tracked those bastards about 5 miles before losing their trail," he reported grimly. "Recognized a couple as Harlan's boys from over White Pine Way." "They need to answer for this," Beau said, his voice low and dangerous. "And they will," the sheriff assured him. "But right now, these folks need help more than vengeance." He nodded toward where Clara was organizing the distribution of blankets. "Miss Goodwin says they can't return to Arizona. Too dangerous with the conflicts down there." Beau watched Clara work, her movements efficient despite what must have been bone-deep exhaustion. "What will they do? That's the question, isn't it?" The sheriff scratched his beard. "Town council's meeting this afternoon. I reckon you should be there, seeing as you're something of a hero to these people now." Beau shook his head. "I just did what needed doing." "Nevertheless," the sheriff said, clapping him on the shoulder before walking away. As the morning progressed, Beau found himself continually in Clara's orbit. They worked together distributing supplies, treating minor injuries, and rebuilding what they could of the Apache's lives. In quiet moments, Clara shared bits of her unusual story: how her missionary parents had died of fever when she was 8, how the Apache had taken her in rather than leaving her orphaned in the wilderness, how she had grown up between two worlds, never fully belonging to either. "It's why I stay," she explained as they carried water from the river. "They're my family, even if we don't share blood." Beau understood devotion to the people who made you who you were. Orphaned himself at 12, he had been raised by his uncle, a horse trader who had taught him everything about reading people and animals alike. By midday, Clara's exhaustion was evident. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her movements had slowed considerably. Beau approached her as she struggled to lift a heavy cooking pot. "You need rest," he said gently, taking the pot from her hands. "There's too much to do," she protested, but swayed slightly on her feet. "You won't help anyone by collapsing," Beau insisted. "Come on." He guided her to a quiet spot beneath a cottonwood tree where he had laid his bedroll. "Lie down. Just for an hour," he urged when she hesitated. Too tired to argue further, Clara finally relented. As she settled onto the blanket, she looked up at him with tired eyes. "Why are you doing all this, Beau? Most cowboys passing through Eureka barely acknowledge the Apache exist." Beau considered her question seriously. "My uncle taught me to judge people by their actions, not where they come from or what they look like." He paused, memories surfacing. "When I was 15, we were caught in a blizzard in Crow territory. They could have left us to freeze, but instead they brought us into their lodges, shared their food. I never forgot that." Clara's eyes softened. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyelids already growing heavy. Within moments, she was asleep. Beau stood watch nearby, turning away anyone who might disturb her rest. He found his gaze drawn to her face, peaceful in sleep despite all that had happened. Something shifted inside him, a recognition that Clara Goodwin was unlike anyone he had ever met. The town council meeting that afternoon was held outdoors due to the number of people who wished to attend. Beau stood at the back, uncomfortable with the attention but determined to speak for the Apache if necessary. To his surprise, many of the townsfolk were in favor of helping the displaced tribe. "They've never caused trouble," declared Mrs. Penelope Wilson, the widow who ran the general store. "Clara Goodwin's beadwork brings in customers from as far as Helena." Others nodded in agreement, though some expressed reservations about permanent arrangements. The debate continued until Beau finally stepped forward. "These people have lost everything," he said, his normally quiet voice carrying across the crowd. "We talk about Christian charity in our church every Sunday. If we turn them away now, those words mean nothing." A murmur rippled through the gathering. Mayor Thomas Douglas stroked his mustache thoughtfully. "What do you propose, Mr. Keller?" Beau hadn't planned to propose anything, but looking at the expectant faces around him, words came naturally. "There's unclaimed land west of my property. Good water, sheltered from winter winds. I'd be willing to sell 10 acres at a fair price to establish a new camp for them." The offer hung in the air for a moment before Clara's voice cut through the silence. "The Apache would pay for the land ourselves," she declared, stepping forward. "We have skills to offer tanning, beadwork, knowledge of medicinal plants. We ask only for the opportunity to live peacefully and trade fairly." Her dignity in that moment struck Beau deeply. She stood tall despite her exhaustion, her chin lifted with pride rather than defiance. Mayor Douglas looked between them, then surveyed the townspeople. "All in favor of allowing the purchase to proceed, say aye." The affirmative response was not unanimous, but it was substantial enough that the matter was settled. As the meeting dispersed, Clara approached Beau, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You would really sell your land?" she asked quietly. "It's just sitting there," he replied with a shrug. "I've more than I need for my horses." Clara studied him for a long moment. "You continue to surprise me, Beau Keller." In the weeks that followed, Beau found himself drawn more and more to the temporary Apache camp by the river. He told himself it was to discuss the land sale, to help with rebuilding efforts, to check on those who had been injured. But in truth, it was Clara who pulled him there like a lodestone. She fascinated him, her skill in navigating between the Apache world and that of the white settlers, her knowledge of plants and animals, her unwavering commitment to her adopted people. They spent long evenings by the fire, Clara teaching him Apache words and phrases, Beau sharing stories of his travels across the frontier. One evening, as they walked along the river after a long day of clearing the new land, Clara stopped to watch the sunset reflecting gold across the water. "My father used to say that water remembers everything it touches," she said softly. "It carries the memory of mountains and plains, of hands that have dipped into it, of rain that has fallen through sunlight." Beau stood beside her, acutely aware of her presence. "What do you think it remembers of you?" Clara turned to look at him, something vulnerable in her expression. "A girl caught between worlds, perhaps, never fully belonging to either. Or maybe," Beau suggested gently, "it remembers someone who builds bridges between those worlds." Their eyes met, and for a breath, something electric passed between them. Clara looked away first, but not before Beau saw the flush that rose to her cheeks. "We should head back," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "Grandfather will worry." As summer progressed into autumn, the new Apache settlement took shape on the land Beau had sold them. He had insisted on a price well below market value, earning disapproval from some of Eureka's more business-minded citizens, but gratitude from the tribe. Sturdy lodges rose where there had once been only grass and scattered pines, and a small but productive garden was established along the creek that bisected the property. Beau's homestead lay just over the ridge, close enough that the smoke from the Apache fires was visible from his porch. He found comfort in their proximity, in knowing Clara was just a short ride away. They had fallen into an easy routine of shared work and conversation, their friendship deepening with each passing day. Yet friendship wasn't what made Beau's heart race when Clara laughed, or what caused him to ride over at dawn just to see her gathering herbs in the morning mist. He had never been a man easily swayed by romantic notions, but something about Clara had bypassed his usual caution. The realization that he was falling in love with her hit Beau one crisp October morning as he watched her teaching Apache children how to identify healing plants. The sunlight caught in her hair as she knelt beside a small boy, guiding his tiny fingers to touch a yarrow leaf. Her patience, her gentleness, the way her entire face transformed when she smiled, it all struck him with such force that he actually stepped back, steadying himself against a tree. "You look like you've seen a ghost," teased Running Cloud, the young girl he had helped rescue from the fire. Now recovered from her ordeal, she often shadowed Beau when he visited the settlement, curious about his horses and his life in town. "Just thinking," Beau replied with a smile, ruffling the girl's hair. Running Cloud looked between him and Clara, her dark eyes wise beyond her years. "My grandmother says when a man looks at a woman that way, he should bring her family a gift." Beau felt heat rise to his face. "Is that so?" The girl nodded solemnly. "A very good gift, to show he is worthy." The child's words stayed with Beau as he rode back to his homestead that afternoon. In Apache culture, he knew, courtship was a serious matter involving family approval and proper protocols. But Clara stood with one foot in each world. Would she expect traditional Apache courtship, or would she follow the ways of white settlers? More importantly, would she welcome his attention at all? She had given no clear indication that she saw him as anything more than a friend and ally. The thought of misreading her feelings and damaging their friendship filled him with dread. For days, Beau wrestled with his growing feelings, unsure how to proceed. The answer came unexpectedly during a trip to Helena for supplies. In a silversmith shop, he spotted a delicate silver bracelet inlaid with turquoise and coral, beautiful yet sturdy, much like Clara herself. Without overthinking, he purchased it, tucking the small package carefully into his saddlebag. Upon his return to Eureka, Beau learned that a group of Apache women, Clara among them, had gone to gather late-season berries in the foothills. Impulsively, he decided to ride out to find them, the bracelet a reassuring weight in his pocket. He located the women easily enough, following the sound of their voices to a sunny slope dotted with wild raspberry bushes. Clara looked up at his approach, surprise and pleasure lighting her features. "Beau, we didn't expect to see you back so soon," he dismounted, suddenly nervous. "I was hoping to speak with you if you can spare a moment." The other women exchanged knowing glances, several hiding smiles behind their hands. Clara shot them a quelling look before setting down her basket. "Of course." They walked a short distance away, climbing to a rocky outcropping that overlooked the valley below. Eureka was visible in the distance, a cluster of buildings nestled against the mountains. "It's beautiful," Clara said, gazing out at the vista. "I sometimes forget to look at it properly. I've been so busy with the settlement." Beau cleared his throat. "Clara, I've been meaning to tell you something." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "These past months, working alongside you, getting to know you, they've meant a great deal to me." Clara turned to face him, her expression carefully neutral. "They've meant a great deal to me too, Beau. You've been a true friend to my people." "That's not what he took a deep breath. "I mean, yes, I care about your people, but it's you, Clara. You're the one I can't stop thinking about." Her eyes widened slightly, a flush spreading across her cheekbones. "Beau, I know there are complications," he hurried on. "Different cultures, different expectations. I don't even know if you could ever feel for me what I've come to feel for you, but I needed you to know." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing the small package. "I brought you something. It's not much, but when I saw it, I thought of you." Clara accepted the package with trembling fingers, carefully unwrapping the paper to reveal the silver bracelet. Her breath caught. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Running Cloud mentioned something about bringing a gift to a woman's family," Beau said with a small smile. "I'm not sure if I'm doing this correctly, but I wanted to do right by your traditions." Clara looked up at him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You spoke with Running Cloud about this." "She noticed how I look at you," Beau admitted. "Apparently, I'm not very good at hiding my feelings." A smile tugged at Clara's lips. "No, you're not." She traced the pattern on the bracelet with her finger. In Apache tradition, a man would bring gifts to the woman's family and prove his worth through his actions and character. Beau's heart sank slightly. "I should have spoken to your grandfather first." "Perhaps," Clara agreed. "But my grandfather has watched you these past months. He's seen how you fought for us, how you've helped us rebuild." She took a step closer. "He told me just last week that you have a good spirit that you see with your heart, not just your eyes." Hope flickered in Beau's chest. "And what do you think, Clara?" Instead of answering immediately, she held out the bracelet and offered him her wrist. Carefully, reverently, Beau fastened the silver around her delicate wrist, his fingers lingering on her skin. "I think," Clara said softly, "that I have been afraid to admit how much you've come to mean to me. My life has always been divided, never fully Apache, never fully white. I didn't think anyone could understand that division." "I don't claim to understand everything about your life," Beau said honestly, "but I want to try if you'll let me." Clara's eyes searched his, looking for something only she could see. Whatever she found there seemed to satisfy her, because she slowly raised her hand to his cheek. "I would like that very much, Beau Keller." The touch of her palm against his skin sent warmth flooding through him. With deliberate care, giving her every chance to pull away, Beau leaned down until his lips met hers. The kiss was gentle at first, a question rather than a demand. When Clara's arms wound around his neck, the kiss deepened, becoming an answer neither of them needed to put into words. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Clara rested her forehead against his chest. "We should return to the others before they come looking for us." Beau nodded reluctantly. "Will your grandfather approve?" Clara smiled up at him. "He already does. But it would be proper for you to speak with him formally." That evening, Beau approached Clara's grandfather, White Hawk, with appropriate solemnity. The elderly man listened to Beau's declaration of intentions with impassive dignity, only the slight crinkling around his eyes betraying his inner thoughts. "You saved my granddaughter from the fire," White Hawk said through Clara's translation. "You helped our people when others would not. These actions speak louder than words." Beau nodded respectfully. "I care deeply for Clara. I want to walk beside her, not ahead or behind." White Hawk considered this. "In our way, a man proves himself worthy over time through gifts and deeds. You have begun this path already." He gestured to the silver bracelet on Clara's wrist. "But there is more to prove." "I understand," Beau replied. "I am willing to follow your traditions." The old man smiled then, revealing surprisingly strong teeth. "Good. You will join us for the hunt tomorrow. We will see if you can provide for our Clara." The following day's hunt tested Beau's patience and skill. The Apache hunters moved with silent efficiency through the forest, communicating with subtle hand signals Beau struggled to interpret. By day's end, however, he had managed to take down a sizable buck using a borrowed bow rather than his rifle, a feat that earned him grudging respect from the Apache men. As autumn deepened, Beau and Clara's courtship progressed according to a blend of Apache and settler traditions. Beau continued to bring gifts to White Hawk and other family members: tobacco, blankets, tools, while also spending time with Clara on carefully chaperoned walks and visits. For Clara's part, she began to share more of herself with Beau, her dreams, her fears, and the complex feelings about her dual heritage. One evening, as they sat by the creek that divided her people's settlement from Beau's land, she confided her deepest worry. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever truly belong anywhere," she said, watching the water ripple over stones. "The Apache took me in, raised me as their own, but I will always be different. Yet I could never fully return to the white world either." Beau took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Maybe belonging isn't about being the same as everyone around you. Maybe it's about being accepted for who you truly are." Clara's eyes met his, vulnerability and hope mingled in their depths. "Is that what you're offering, Beau?" "Acceptance of all that I am. That and more," he promised. "I don't want you to be anyone but yourself, Clara. Your life between worlds isn't a deficiency, it's what makes you extraordinary." The first snow fell in early November, dusting the mountains and valley with white. The Apache settlement was well prepared for winter, their lodges sturdy and well insulated, their storehouses filled with preserved food. Beau had helped them build corrals for the small herd of horses they had acquired through trading, ensuring the animals would have shelter from the harsh Montana winter. As the days grew shorter and colder, Beau found himself thinking more about the future. His feelings for Clara had only deepened with time, and he could no longer imagine his life without her. After consulting with White Hawk about proper protocol, he decided to formally ask for Clara's hand during the winter solstice celebration. The day of the celebration arrived with a crystal clarity unique to winter in Montana. The sky stretched endless blue above the snow-covered landscape, the air so cold it stung the lungs with each breath. The Apache gathered around massive bonfires, singing songs that had been passed down for generations. Beau sat among them, no longer a stranger but not quite one of them either, much like Clara herself. When the time came for gift-giving, Beau approached White Hawk with a small wooden box he had carved himself. Inside lay a simple gold ring that had belonged to his mother, his most precious possession. With Clara translating, though she was clearly puzzled by the formal nature of their conversation, Beau made his request. "I come to ask for Clara's hand in marriage," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I offer my protection, my provision, and my undying devotion. I will honor her heritage and support her role among her people." White Hawk's weathered face remained impassive as he considered the request. Finally, he spoke, his words measured. "You have proven yourself a man of honor, Beau Keller. You have hunted with us, worked alongside us, and respected our ways." He paused, looking to Clara. "But the decision is not mine alone." All eyes turned to Clara, who stood wide-eyed between her grandfather and the man she had grown to love. Understanding dawned on her face as Beau opened the wooden box to reveal the ring. "Clara Goodwin," Beau said softly, switching to English for words that came from his heart. "I never expected to find someone like you. You've shown me a new way of seeing the world, of understanding what really matters. I want to build a life with you, one that honors both sides of who you are." He took a deep breath. "Will you marry me?" Clara's eyes filled with tears as she looked from the ring to Beau's face. For a heart-stopping moment he feared she might refuse. Then she smiled, brilliant and beautiful as the sunrise. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you, Beau Keller." A cheer went up from the gathered Apache, White Hawk's approving nod lost in the sudden celebration. Beau slipped the ring onto Clara's finger before pulling her into an embrace that bordered on improper by Apache standards. But no one seemed to mind in that moment of joy. Later, as they stood slightly apart from the ongoing festivities, Clara examined the ring on her finger with wonder. "It's beautiful," she said. "Does it have a story?" Beau nodded. "It was my mother's. My father gave it to her when they married in Boston before they came west. She died when I was 12, but she told me to save it for the woman who would make my heart feel like home." Clara's eyes softened. "And do I make your heart feel like home? More than anywhere I've ever been," Beau replied, his voice rough with emotion. They were married in the spring when wildflowers carpeted the valley and the world seemed renewed with possibility. The ceremony reflected their unique circumstances, part Apache blessing ceremony held at dawn, part Christian service in Eureka's small church that afternoon. Some townspeople grumbled about the mixed culture celebration, but most came to offer good wishes to the couple who had, in their own way, helped bridge the divide between two communities. Clara wore a traditional white wedding dress for the church ceremony, but her hair was adorned with eagle feathers according to Apache custom, and around her throat hung a necklace of turquoise and silver that had been a gift from White Hawk. Beau, for his part, wore his best suit but carried a medicine pouch Clara had made for him, containing sacred herbs meant to bring strength and wisdom. As spring turned to summer, they settled into life together in Beau's cabin, which they had expanded to better accommodate visitors from the Apache settlement. Clara planted a garden that combined European vegetables with native plants used for medicine and ceremony, while Beau's horse breeding business flourished with Clara's keen eye for good bloodlines. Their home became a place where both settlers and Apache felt welcome, a physical manifestation of the bridge they were building between cultures. There were challenges, of course. Some in Eureka never fully accepted their union, and Clara sometimes struggled with balancing her responsibilities to her adopted tribe with her new role as Beau's wife. Yet in their quiet moments together, watching the sun set behind the mountains, planning for their future, sharing stories of their pasts, they found a harmony that transcended the divisions of the world around them. When Clara told Beau she was expecting their first child as summer waned toward autumn, the joy that filled their home seemed to spill outward, touching everyone around them. "Our child will have the best of both worlds," Clara said as they lay in bed one night, Beau's hand resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "And the challenges of both," Beau acknowledged. "But we'll teach them to be proud of who they are, of all the threads that make up their story." Clara turned to face him in the darkness. "Like you've taught me to be proud of mine." "You taught yourself that," Beau corrected gently. "I just reminded you of what you already knew." As winter approached once more, marking nearly a year since the fire that had brought them together, Beau often found himself reflecting on how much had changed. The Apache settlement had grown prosperous, trading regularly with Eureka and other nearby towns. Relations between the tribe and settlers had improved, though tensions still flared occasionally. And he, a solitary cowboy who had never expected to put down permanent roots, now found himself eagerly anticipating fatherhood. One crisp November afternoon, Beau and Clara rode to the site of the old camp that had burned. Nature had reclaimed much of it, grass and saplings pushing through the ashes. They dismounted, and Clara walked slowly through what had once been her home, her hand resting on her slightly rounded belly. "I used to believe that fire only destroyed," she said thoughtfully. "But the Apache elders teach that some seeds only germinate after fire has passed through. The heat cracks open their shells, allowing new life to emerge." Beau stepped up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Like us." Clara leaned back against him, nodding. "Like us." They stood there as the sun began its descent, painting the Montana sky in shades of pink and gold. Valor and Clara's mare, Willow, grazed peacefully nearby, unconcerned with human philosophies about destruction and renewal. "I think about that night sometimes," Beau said quietly. How close I came to not seeing the fire, to riding past without stopping. Clara turned in his arms to face him. But you did see it, and you rode toward it rather than away. I couldn't have done anything else, he admitted. That's why I love you, Beau Keller, Clara said, rising on tiptoe to kiss him softly. Your heart always leads you toward the fire, not away from it. As they mounted their horses to return home, Beau reached across to take Clara's hand. Ready? She nodded, her face illuminated by the last golden rays of sunlight. Always. They rode side by side across the valley, toward the home they had built together, a place that existed in the space between worlds, where hope had overcome fear, and love had emerged from the ashes of destruction. Behind them, the sight of the burning camp faded into shadow, its purpose in their story complete, but never forgotten. 5 years later, Beau stood on the porch of their expanded homestead, watching Clara teach their son Benjamin and daughter Rose how to identify healing plants in their extensive garden. Benjamin, at 4 years old, had Beau's quiet intensity and Clara's quick mind. 2-year-old Rose was already showing signs of her father's affinity for horses, fearlessly approaching even the most spirited colts in Beau's growing herd. The Apache settlement had flourished into a permanent community, with solid cabins replacing the original lodges and a trading post that attracted business from throughout the territory. White Hawk, now moving slowly with age but still sharp of mind, often sat with his great-grandchildren, teaching them Apache words and stories that connected them to their heritage. Eureka had grown as well, the discovery of new silver deposits bringing an influx of miners and merchants. As a respected horse breeder and husband to a woman known for her healing skills, Beau found himself increasingly involved in town affairs, even serving on the town council despite his natural inclination toward solitude. Clara approached him now, wiping garden soil from her hands. The children are asking to ride to the river. I told them we'd all go after supper. Beau smiled, pulling her close for a quick kiss. Sounds perfect. As they prepared the evening meal together, moving around their kitchen with the easy synchronicity of years spent together, Beau was struck anew by how fortunate he was. The impulsive decision to ride toward a distant fire had led him not just to Clara, but to a life richer and more meaningful than he could have imagined. Later that evening, as they sat by the river watching their children splash in the shallows, Clara rested her head on Beau's shoulder. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't seen the fire that night? Beau considered this. Sometimes. But then I remember what you told me about water, how it carries the memory of everything it touches. And, Clara prompted. And I think some things are meant to be remembered by more than just water, he said softly. I believe I would have found you somehow, even if it hadn't been that night. Some connections exist before we're even aware of them. Clara's fingers intertwined with his, the silver bracelet he had given her years ago still adorning her wrist. Like threads in a tapestry that's already been woven. Exactly like that, Beau agreed. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the valley that had become their home, they called the children from the water. Together, the family rode back toward their homestead, Beau and Clara side by side, Benjamin and Rose securely in front of them on their saddles. Valor, now older but still strong, carried Beau and Benjamin with the same steady assurance he had shown on the night of the fire. The future stretched before them not without challenges, but full of promise. In a land where conflict between cultures had brought so much pain, they had created something beautiful from the ashes. Their children would carry forward a legacy of bridging worlds, of finding strength in diversity rather than division. And if, in years to come, someone were to ask how it all began, They would tell of a night when a cowboy rode toward danger rather than away from it, when a horse carried more hope than fear, and when two people from different worlds discovered that love could transcend the boundaries others had created. For Beau and Clara Keller, that night was both an ending and a beginning, the final chapter of their separate journeys, and the first page of the story they would write together, a story that would echo through generations to come.